Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. Well, I have not seen the market. Oh, wait, hold on. Where's our music? There we go. I have not seen the market this positive for months, I feel like. There's just the optimism out there is just almost crazy. I'm not going to say it's completely crazy because, you know, when you put positioning together and everything else, I think we were kind of due for it. But it's pretty strong. And I think that means, like, we want to buy today, right? Well, let's come over to the charts. We can see treasuries, really good, strong move up, ended up much higher than they were before. Not to the highs of last week, though, interestingly enough. So maybe that just means we have more room to go, right? By the way, I'm not seeing much of a change in the 2-10-year spread. S&P 500, whew. Okay, now you really see how big of a day yesterday was. I think that's the largest update we've had all year. Yeah, it's pretty good. Oil. Okay, well, so oil just came back to where it was, but that's, you know, we'll take what we can get. That's certainly something to celebrate there. Gold and silver, not as positive as the others, but doing okay. Copper really going. So I think we really need to start paying closer attention to copper here now, because it seems to me that one of the biggest losers in the conflict so far has been China. And China is one of the largest buyers of copper. So, you know, we want to look at copper as a proxy for how China is doing going forward here. See how they recover through all this. Here's the Japanese yen, seeing a little bit of a rise today as well. And the dollar coming off. So we kind of got like this risk on sort of trade going on. Weaker dollar kind of lifts everything. So we're liking that. And then Bitcoin also jumping up to, well, let's see here. New high since March 15th-ish. So still within the range, but a good move up in Bitcoin. Man, for some reason, my nose really itches. It feels like there's a hair there or something, but there's not. I don't know what the deal is. Anyways, I'm probably going to be itching it all day. Well, I think today I need to try to be a little bit more locked in. Well, let's make sure the news squawk is all on. Oh, I totally forgot that we had PPI, didn't we? Yes, PPI was month over month, spot 5 versus an expected 1.1, and core PPI spot 1 versus an expected spot 4. So that was actually really good, but they seem to be ignoring it. That's actually a little troubling to me, because my thinking is everything is awesome. Everybody is really optimistic. We should be in a buy all the things environment. And, you know, PPI being lighter than expected should be an additional positive development. So that should you know, they should be buying it off of that. So for it to come all the way back kind of has me questioning my thesis. I'm not really seeing any kind of strong flows coming through here either. And we're already, yeah, it was kind of late today. Wow. Okay, well, we shall recenter here. We shall get our data levels so you can kind of see where we're at. This is like, we're right where the open was, so. I guess I should also note that the 10-year looks really thick today. Oh, man. See, I don't have any of the things set to like set the opens or anything. Okay, well. I suppose one of the things is that, you know, because we have been so positive that we're going to be vulnerable to, you know, any kind of a shock if the headlines don't go the way that they want. And I do feel that the market is being a little bit too positive on these headlines. Like, it just I still don't believe that the Iranians are really going to make a deal, but they're just saying like, oh, like there might be more negotiations. Market's super, super happy about that. So oh, they did it. Cool. I was just checking my taxes. And they accepted it, and everything is cool. Thank goodness for inexpensive tax software. Now we just need AI to get good enough to run the tax software for me. Dude, it was not cheap for me this year. It was like $200 to do the taxes. Well, it doesn't. Federal is free to file. Well, it depends on what you do. Right. So if you're just taking the standard deduction and you don't have a business or any of that, and like everything is just standard, then you can like use the free version of mini tax software and and get just fine. It used to be that TurboTax most people like didn't pay, but now like everybody pays. But I have to use the advanced version because not only do we have to do all of the tax stuff for this business, but then I did contract work last year. Oh man, just I look away for a second and it's up 2 ticks. They do business stuff on that website, huh? I guess I overpaid. I already did it, so. But the other thing is that because I was a contractor, you know, I had to pay tax. I had saved stuff aside, set stuff aside, and done that. But so I had set the thing up on the IRS website, but then when I go to the account, it doesn't show the balance that I said it should be. So, but I think I still just go in today and make a payment and take everything out of that account, because the state already came in and withdrew. There he is. Ship testing U.S. blockade appears to do U-turn. You know, I saw a story last night on Zero Hedge about a ship that was testing the blockade, and I never saw what happened. They didn't do a follow-up. Probably because nothing happened. She says global order is crumbling into disarray as Trump turns up pressure campaign on China. Ships move slow, man. Yeah, but I think that you can move through the strait in a couple of hours. So I saw where a short moment where I could have gotten in at 08, and it's not giving you another opportunity to do that. Still a little nervous about it. Something that really bothers me is how slippery it seems, considering the amount of liquidity that's out there. That's like the amount of visible liquidity that is there. And at the moment, there looks like there's maybe an iceberg at 08. Ben's a big tanker at 14 knots. Following from Owl, thank you. Thank you for watching. We get a lot of, yeah, it's kind of the sad irony of it is that for us to get a really big stream, we would want a lot of people from the United States watching. But this is just too early for anybody in the US to watch YouTube. So we get a lot of European and, well, all over the place, really. Really all over the place. But usually, which part of Africa, though? I tell you what, pretty much every country in Africa has interesting geopolitical stuff going on that we in the US are not well versed on. And I myself feel woefully like there's going to be some day where like all the headlines are coming out of Africa, you know, and to really, really understand what's going on in the market, and I'm going to be like completely clueless. Hopefully by then I understand more. Okay. Down tick at 08. And some orders going off at 07.5 again. And Steffa says Cloud is getting so bad that I have to code by hand again. You know, I've been wondering, like, so I made some changes. Well, I made my trading GUI thing, right? And it totally works. But when I got the plugin mode working, it did something that I didn't like in the code. Because basically I've got like this plant is kind of like the heart of it is the ticker plant. And it created two codeways, one for the regular rhythmic and one for the plugin mode. So it didn't create like a unifying architecture. Now, I don't think that part is because Claude has gotten more dumb. That Claude is specifically instructed to avoid unnecessary abstractions. And so if it can get it done without creating the abstraction, it does it. And I think that part of that is a belief amongst many software developers to avoid unnecessary abstractions because you end up over optimizing the code. And then it's like, well, you end up changing it anyways. So why even bother doing that? To which I would respond, yeah, but it's like 30 minutes to redo it in Claude. So it doesn't matter anymore. Like the whole let's not do stuff because, you know, we don't have to. I don't really think applies anymore. I think that it should be more, you should create the most perfect solution at that point. And it's an abstraction is good as long as it helps people understand the code and what it's doing and make the code look cleaner, right? But I also think that they have that in there because it makes the LLMs more effective. That seems to be one of the things that they got to put in there to actually get them to write usable code. So that's okay. I can just tell it, hey, we need to design this abstraction here. So I do that. And, you know, while I'm going through the plan that we had and reviewing it with the LLM, way more technical considerations in there than I think should be going. I'm just like, well, you have one code path and one code path, and now you're combining it. It shouldn't be that big of a change, right? It shouldn't be. You shouldn't be asking me about these kind of more fundamental questions because we already kind of answered some of that with the other code. So what's going on there, And I'm worried that, like, you know, it'll rewrite it and it'll make slightly different decisions that are wrong. But I went with it. It went through and it did its whole thing. And it still worked. It still worked. So, like, okay. Is it good or bad? I had to do the code review. I have not, like, done my own code review. Which is to say, like, I looked at what it was doing. Oh, you know what's another thing that I hate? Is when Claude is, like, changing code. And, like, instead of just saying, okay, I remove this line and I add this line, it just, like, replaces entire chunks. So it's harder to see what it's doing because most of the chunk is not changed, even though in what it's showing you, it does. So I have to focus more on Git to understand the differences of what I did and how much of a change it was. Haven't done that part yet. I guess that will be a project for tonight. See if we like what it's done or we don't. But that's where it kind of makes me think, well, maybe part of that is that Claude just seems stupid now. So should I, like, wait and, well, maybe I should, you know, accept it and come back to it in a couple of months when maybe Claude is smarter or something. Because I did see that thing where a guy, he's running constant tests and he says that Claude has gotten about 60% dumber. On that hand, though, if they're making it dumber because they don't have as much compute, then I don't have any hopes that that's going to get better anytime soon. Like, if they release Mythos, it will just get worse because Mythos is an even more demanding model. Meanwhile, you know, I really think that we're undergoing a state change in the AI space right now, though. I kind of feel like there is just you can kind of build an intuition to it when you're looking at a complex system. You know, you see in everything moving around, and then all of a sudden you can kind of, it's just, and it just completely changes. Like, the whole landscape just completely changes. And the next week you come and you look at it, and everybody's looking at it completely differently. And I think that that's what's happened in the AI space. The IMF forecast coming out here. I have a small startup company. We sell internet connectivity for $15 a month. The opportunity here is endless, and we just have a problem with investments. That's interesting. You know, like, the whole startup thing really is something that you have to cultivate, you know? Like, we can come and put books out and make videos and things like that, but it really seems like it's something where you need, like, incubators, and, like, people that want to do startups are matched up with people that have done it before and have, like, mentors and things like that. And when you're starting from scratch, it's really hard to build. The news squawk is still going on the IMF forecasts. They're gonna trade 07 now, huh? Well, I think my skepticism when it was at 08 was justified, huh? like, my thinking was come in, buy all the things, and what I'm seeing in the flow just does not match that. It does not suggest a meta order long. I've been watching it more closely than I have in a while, but I'm just not seeing the trade that we wanted to take. Anyways, so I was gonna say, like, when Anthropic passed on the deal with the government, when I initially heard that headline, I thought that was a pretty bad thing for Anthropic. I was kind of like, well, there should be no reason that you shouldn't be able to make a deal. Like, unless the government is really, really asking for, like, dystopian shit. And then, sure enough, like, Sam Altman comes along and makes a deal in a day, claiming that is still, you know, they still have protections and they're still not crossing these lines. And they're the same lines that Anthropic had. So you do kind of have to wonder if it's not just the CEO is too far left and it just didn't jive with the people that he was negotiating with. And that does not bode well for Anthropic. So, you know, I thought it was a really, really big L for Anthropic. But what I didn't anticipate was so many people deciding to go and purchase Anthropic's product because of that. It's like all of the left-leaning kind of tech people were like, oh, okay, well, we want to jump in bed with Anthropic then. And then, at the same time, we got all these headlines about Sam Altman. Now, the stuff that I've been reading about Sam Altman is really bad. You know, I'm not convinced that AI is going to replace all work and all that sort of stuff. But if it does, the last person that I want to be making the most powerful man in the world is Sam Altman. And I think that like pretty much everybody has come to that same conclusion. And that's probably an even bigger problem for ChatGPT than anything. And then you add on top of that they're not as good for coding. The thing that was kind of like the big selling point for OpenAI, which was kind of more like the personability of it, they toned down because it was becoming a sycophant. Yeah, like it just doesn't seem like anything's going for OpenAI. And they were the ones that went and made all of these crazy data center deals and all this sort of stuff, right? So they've already pulled back on what they're going to commit. And I think it continues. And so that whole section of the space that was moving up big because of anticipated AI demand is going to get hit hard by the market. So, you know, like there could be like an AI crash as I think a real possibility here. Even though it seems like Anthropic is winning, they're having problems with compute. And maybe people just say it's too expensive, right? But yeah, it works. It's useful, but it's too expensive. It's not worth the money. So they don't spend as much. We'd rather do it with the people. And then... yeah. Seth, are you building a platform specifically for algorithmic trading, e.g. anomalies, icebergs, etc., 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 or are your main objectives something entirely else like APIs for your platform? And then on my comment earlier, yeah, I literally started my company with $500 and no knowledge of networking and used AI to build a hotspot portal. It needs a little tweak, which I'm not good at, but it's functional. Oh, that's very interesting. Well, yeah, but I mean, if people are actually like getting internet through it, that's... I don't know how you do that. It's probably a different ecosystem over there. Yeah, so my platform, the reason that I am building my own platform is twofold. first one is that we've kind of been getting hints that NinjaTrader is moving in a certain direction, which is basically they want everybody to use NinjaTrader brokerage as their broker, and then they got bought out. And so we are concerned that at some point NinjaTrader will no longer be a viable option for us. And so we want to have a platform that would allow us to do similar things to what we're doing on NinjaTrader. Because, you know, there's other good platforms out there, but I don't think that they have quite the ecosystem or are as easy to develop on. So that's the first thing. But then the second thing, and it was kind of really the bigger and original kind of driver behind this, was that I want to be able to do more advanced algorithms on my platform. I want to do like machine learning. And I have found that because of the way that NinjaTrader is set up with C# and all of that, that it's really difficult to do those sorts of things, especially to do that sort of a thing and like distribute it to other people. So I want to make a platform that gives you access to the Python ecosystem, has all of the stuff for being able to save and record different data series and do the transformations and basically have your data pipelines. I want that all built in. So that's kind of the main thing. So on top of all of that, I'm definitely going to put in all of the order flow tools, right? So things that kind of show you icebergs and reconstruct tape and all of that sort of stuff is definitely like going to be in there. But those are really more like base features, right? Those aren't the things that are going to be like really going to make this platform a competitive platform. And I do think that if I'm able to do all the work and get as, you know, really get far with it, that it will be a competitive platform. So I'm thinking at the moment, well, so actually I can show you, can't I? Where is it? Oh, it's over here. I have to, yeah. You can start it up here. Timeline? I don't know. You know, the part of my problem is I have just not been the most consistent. I've been pretty good at doing a little bit on it every night. I try to like do a little bit of work with the help of Claude. That's one thing is that I'm really trying to avoid with this one, like vibe coding it. I've taken different approaches to this, and the one thing that I did that I like truly vibe coded, like I just said, AI, you do your thing and whatever we come up with. Even though it was a relatively simple thing, it ended up being like 1,000 lines of code, and it was a complete mess. It was a complete mess, and I was not happy with it. So I am very much trying to avoid vibe coding this. I discuss with it and try to understand every tiny little technical decision that's involved in here. And in a GUI application, that turns out to be like a lot. It turns out to be a lot of stuff. Because you've got all of this asynchronous programming sort of stuff going on. And for each piece of data that's getting passed from my rhythmic connection onto the chart, there are considerations that I have to make about what kind of a channel it is and how the memory is managed and things like that. So that means that I go slower than others probably. But Claude has what Claude has done, or the way that I've used Claude, in addition to helping me understand everything, is to just get through those roadblocks. There were some roadblocks that I don't think I would have been able to figure out without Claude, because a lot of these frameworks move so quickly and these sorts of things. It can just debug through them really quickly. So yeah. So now I've got something that prints a chart. Not bad, right? And it works with the plugin mode. So I'm already doing things in my GUI that supposedly you shouldn't be able to do, are supposedly technically impossible. They only have the plugin mode for C#. So if you want to make a Rhythmic application that uses Rhythmic's plugin mode, you need to write it in C#. Well, I figured out a way around that. So this is how I'm able to open up my application and it not disconnect me from Rhythmic Trader Pro. So we can run all three platforms alongside each other. That was like the last remaining, like, I'm not sure if we can do this, but we'll see. So this really truly is, like, right here in this state that it's in right now, like the proof of concept. Then the next step, I have the proof of concept for the Python stuff, but right now it just like logs stuff to the console. So I think that the next really, really big milestone would be to have an indicator that runs in Python that is drawing stuff on the chart. Okay, like that's the next big milestone. But I also kind of want to, adjust it a little bit so that it's actually useful. Like right now, cool, it displays a chart that kind of doesn't help. Like if you're familiar with the past 2 days, then you would see, oh yeah, that is a chart of the S&P 500 over the past 5 days. But I need like axes and labels. Where is the day's change? What prices are we at? You need to be able to zoom in and scroll in and out, that sort of a thing. I need to be able to like change what the actual chart is, right? So I'm thinking that I should do some of those smaller things first. Allow you to change the chart, change which instrument it is, change the time frame, have axes, be able to scroll. How did I create the candles? It is drawing them raw on the GPU using WGPU library. So it's not straight doing Vulkan. So WGPU is kind of a wrapper on top of direct 3D Vulkan other things, right? But it's still very low level. So but it is, while we wait, my man, to keep the updates coming. Oh, thank you. So yeah, I get it scrolling and that sort of a thing. But I actually think the next thing that I want to do is packaging it. Like right now I had to start it by going to the command line and like running it that way. So I need to kind of put together all of the build stuff. Maybe even something that will install it. I think at the moment, all it is an exe file. So I think, but I don't know. I have to investigate that part. But I think that I need to make it like an actual package. Something that I could give to other people to test. Or I could, more importantly, I could, make a Mac version and run the Mac version and all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's maybe the next step I'm going to do first, and then tackle some of those other things. Oh, so he's answering our question from earlier. We buy bulk internet from our version of AT&T here in Kenya. By the way, Microsoft has entered our market, and then I resell it for monthly and per hour. Huh. So what stops other people from just getting it directly from the version, your version of AT&T? Oh, you're in Kenya. Okay, so that's interesting too. Like, but Kenya is kind of one of the more, like they're doing better than other areas of Africa, right? I don't think that Kenya has quite as many geopolitical kind of, I don't know how to say it, problems. Some of these places, like especially up here, and I tell you what, this area right here in Africa is becoming like very geopolitically important and is still quite volatile. Still quite volatile. But Kenya is like a different thing. I guess you got Ethiopia and Somalia next to you, so those are some those have been some problem areas recently. But I haven't seen it. But again, that's where I get to, like, I'm starting to learn more about the geopolitical stuff that's going on in Africa. But I have so much to learn. So I guess that's one of the things that I will do today, is to learn the recent political history of Kenya. What was I saying? I want to just go back through the comments here really quick. To use the library, yeah. I'm like have to actually make the vertexes and put them into the GPU and like all of it. It's not just a draw a rectangle. Like in C# I do it as just draw a rectangle. This one I have to go more deeper. You know, the good news is that, especially if I was willing to vibe code it, I could probably have all of those changes and have this going in a week, and right. So I think that the updates can keep coming and keep coming quickly. But if I can get those things out of the way, and then I can focus on the Python side of it, which is the real moneymaker of it. And then, I don't know, how far do I need to get it before I would feel confident selling it? Well, I think I need to talk to Rhythmic first. But where's that thing? So one thing I'm wondering here, this part at the top here, says chart 0. There's like the X and stuff like that. That's created by the little framework that I'm using for being able to make it resizable and stuff. Oh, it's so smooth. That's so crazy. Isn't that crazy? But I think that I want, so it might not be able to be up there, but I want like a toolbar. I think I want a toolbar at the top that you can minimize really quickly, so that you can have just a completely clean chart. And I might change the font. I don't know what font I want to go for. I think the font that I would find the most interesting is not what everybody else would like. People would probably prefer an Arial. So they're really clean looking and stuff, right? Well, I'm going to close that down for now, so we can see behind here. So I'm hearing from I don't know who exactly it was, but it was from Pakistan, saying that a blockade is illegal and like a really dramatic step to save face. When they said we're going to impose a blockade, that was just so far out of left field. Apparently there were some people that kind of saw it coming, like way early on. They're like, why wouldn't they just do this? But I was not expecting it. So it was like hard to process. Okay, is this a good idea or a bad idea? Is this good or bad for America? Like what actually is the consequence of this? But now you're hearing people talk about it, and who comes out and condemns it, who starts making moves and doing things because that happened. And when you look at that who, I think the answer is that this was actually a very, very effective strategy. Because China in particular, I think is like really caught off guard by this. And it's hurting them, I think. And I think that because it's hurting them so much, it's putting more pressure on Iran to make a deal. And I think that the market responded so positively yesterday in part because they feel that this kind of shift in the strategic landscape is good for the United States either way, whether they make a deal or not. Kind of showed, as long as nobody challenges the United States on it, because if they started shooting tons of drones at U.S. carriers and all that sort of a thing, there was deaths on U.S. ships, then that calculus would flip really, really quickly, right? But right now, nobody's really challenging it. It seems like, oh yeah, actually, the United States does hold all of the cards. And so I think that that's part of why the market did such a hard flip. But the other one is Europe, because Europe's not happy about it. So now you kind of see, well, Europe was benefiting from as much oil coming out there as possible because they weren't tapping their own. They've kind of pushed off nuclear and all of these things, so they've become even more dependent on it. Why didn't Europe back up the president when he decided to go into Iran? Because they can't. They literally can't. It's too harmful to their own energy supplies, and they have too much of an Islamic population in their countries now to be able to get reelected if they get involved with Iran. So they literally can't. And that's an alarming discovery, isn't it? Oh, I know what it was. I was like, I was talking about something and then I kind of stopped. Remember earlier I was talking about AI. It seems like the market is flipped and Anthropic is leading right now. But I'm also concerned that you could see a decline in the market. So keep in mind, this is a complex system. So everybody kind of has this idea that so there's a certain future that because of AI, we are destined to move towards. And so you've got the Sam Altmans of the world saying, well, we're going to have a basic universal income because AI is going to replace everybody and there won't be any work anymore. No, you don't need basic universal income, and it will probably make things worse. Basic universal income basically solidifies everybody that's kind of been harmed by AI. Them and their generations will just stay perpetually impoverished and never be able to dig their way out. UBI will. It will be a chain. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen, though. Right? I'm saying UBI is one possible future of many. And so you can kind of look at it as like a field. Like there's a giant field and there's different outcomes. And one of the outcome is artificial general intelligence. One of them is massive deflation. One of them is Butlerian jihad, right? Like Dune, where the people revolt against the machines and then just ban artificial intelligence, right? And, you know, there are multiple paths to each one of those outcomes. And depending on the decisions that we make and the conditions, you can go to different sides of these outcomes. Okay, so that decline there was a little, They just breached the opening range. So I think that you're going to start to see a bunch of people trying to go short on the opening range trade. That is not a trade that I believe in. Need to keep a close eye on it, though. Let's bring the microphone up a little higher. Keep my eyes over here. Like I said, capital is rotating here because of the trade wars in the EU and the US. By the way, we were designated, Kenya, as a major non-NATO ally. We are China in the 90s. Now Ethiopia is growing fast, really. There is definitely a lot of room for growth in Africa, that's for sure. But we in the rest of the world don't realize how big of a place Africa is. It's a big place. Okay, well, they're still holding that offer at 06.5 after the last downtick. So I was skeptical when we were in, like, originally I thought, oh, if I could get 07 half would be okay. And I missed it. And then it went up into this 08 half area. And when it was up there, I was saying, well, you know, I'm not seeing the stuff in the flows that I think I would really need to. And so sure enough, they moved down to the lower end of the range. And now they are kind of testing this lower end of the range. Even at the lower end of the range, though, I'm seeing some things that I'm a little suspicious to me. Like, it is still really slippery. Like, some of these ticks have happened on not that much volume. And, like, most of the contracts, most of the resting liquidity is, like, pulling out of the way. So even though it breached, like, the opening range, I'm kind of skeptical that it will be like a you know, test on this direction and then reverse. Oh, I guess I also got to remember that today we get to go until 9 o'clock my time. So we get 90 minutes. I could still take a trade. Maybe I should take the reversal if I still believe in it. But what's telling me that I'm going to get a flow going long? Nothing. Well, let's come over here to the charts. What we like to see is a good, consistent trend in the cumulative delta. When I look at the 10-year, it's kind of all over the place. Like, it's mostly been going sideways, right? Like, we had the move down, and then it's been sideways. And especially on this last little leg here, not really changing cumulative delta there, is there? A little bit in the 5-year. But then you look at the 30-year, or there on the left. Okay, so the 30-year moved there. The 30-year was what moved. So I don't see enough of, like, a consistent trend, nor like a predictor that we're going to go down to get me into the short. But with that ZB going down, I'm probably not going to try and buy the dip. Dune changed my perspective on the world. Is crazy. You know, I really like the book. Dune really was like written for the future. It was, this guy had kind of watched World War II and the post World War II order and understood it really, really well and made a book about it. And it has many very, very valuable insights about the way that the world functions. So I really like it because of that. There are some things I think that it's wrong about overall, but like my thing, kind of comparing it to this Iran conflict, you'd say, well, Dune predicted this, that, you know, oil is super important, and then the locals would rise up and it'd be a problem, and then they could hold the oil hostage and the great powers would have to come, right? And in the book, the Fremen win, right? But I don't think that that's what happens in real life. I think that in real life, you do something like that, they're not gonna let you get away with that, right? It's actually kind of funny. Dune has been retconned several times, one of the more interesting things that happens in the end is that Arrakis becomes a paradise. But then where do you get, you don't have the sandworms anymore. So they have to make the sandworms on a different world. And it's kind of like, well, why didn't they do that in the first place? Why did they only have it on Arrakis? That's dumb. They could have moved it before that. Oh, nobody thought of it, I guess. So I am getting some signs here. So you see, we've traded 8,000 contracts at 06 half, 8,000 contracts at 06. So I actually maybe do see some signs of absorption here. And on that last move up, 3K iceberg on the offer and they busted through it. That's a good sign as well. Okay, there's a big order there. 07 half that's stacking and pulling as well. Okay, we have AP News live stream and Goolsby will be speaking. Oh, I don't have that one on my calendar. Okay. Oof. Okay. It's a good uptick. So now I think that we have to wonder if we're seeing a spread trade going on. Because we've seen some big buys over here in ZN. But the cumulative delta is still very negative in ZB. I'm also, by the way, seeing oil being pretty negative at the moment. Yeah, that's a good... Like right now, if I were to put an order at 06 half, right, like that, you know, I'm in the back of the line. I got almost 5,000 contracts ahead of me. What are the chances that I'm going to get filled there, right? So at the moment, it's looking pretty good. Like, you missed 06 half, and that's like your last opportunity. And then if we come back into the opening range, What do you think the chances are that we completely cross that range? I don't know if I've ever seen a time where we've just kind of rotated around the open and not gone for any of the volatility targets for so long. Okay, so here's one. Is trading a long-term career or will AI replace it? Dude, AI already replaced trading like 20 years ago. Seriously. Like there was a short period in the early 2000s where there were some people that were making a lot of money from retail day trading in electronic markets. And then like almost as soon as they had success with that, the edge in it disappeared. And then by 2010, the robots had essentially completely taken over the market making function of the markets. So that was one area where you could have made money trading, right? And as things go along, like more and more edge is going to be taken out. So especially on the technical side, technical trading is just only gets harder. Now on the informational side, well, I don't know if I see anything on the informational side that is making the informational side easier or harder. So there's still going to be opportunities there, but it's already not really a very viable career. I don't think you can call it a career. That doesn't mean you can't make money from it. But to me, a career is like a consistent source of income where you can move between different related roles in companies. And, you know, it can be a really, it's not a career. If you actually get hired by a bank, then trading is a career. But retail trading, it's not a good career. It is a hobby and a curiosity for the few people that have the cash to burn. Okay, so they fought a little bit at 07, but it went offer again. I haven't seen like more than 2,000 stack on that offer yet, but I think that they could. Okay, so there was a brief uptick and it went down again. I guess I'm seeing enough low liquidity there that we could be worried about, or we should be worried about them digging a hole there. But it hasn't been that much volume, so I don't think we're there yet. I suppose if I still really wanted to get long, I could do it at 07. Or I would at least want to catch 07. So if I'm hitting into 07.5, that's probably not a very good position. Given that it's gone back and forth at 07 so much. Okay, so there's a good offer on 07 now. I don't think that completely dashes my hopes for further upside, but... Okay, Goolsby is speaking now. Okay, I think that the market is deciding that Goolsby is going to speak hawkishly, and they're selling it. So I don't think that they've reacted to anything specifically that he has said, just the comments that I've heard so far do sound hawkish. AI shifted our bottleneck from writing code to reviewing it. Anyone else? Well, that means you're doing it wrong. If like the bottleneck is code review, and that wasn't an issue before, then either A, you were too much of a rubber stamp before, right? Or B, you're like not doing enough of your work to, you know, like, okay, you have AI do a small little thing and it's like 100 lines of code and then people review it. Easy peasy, right? But that's probably not what you're doing when you're saying that the code review is the biggest bottleneck. You're probably like hallucinating a complete rework of the application with thousands of lines of code for people to review. And how can they do that? Okay, they did take 07-bit again, but only briefly. And they get back above 3,000 there. Bitcoin is on a good run at the moment. The S&P 500 is on a really great run at the moment. Okay, there's a good bit at 07 now. By the way, did I note that the Goldman economists still see 2 rate cuts this year? Okay, Goolsby is saying that if inflation stays up, that pushes cuts past 2026. So, well, earlier we were seeing a little bit of downside, and I said, well, that's maybe because of Goolsby, but they continue to tick up in spite of that. Now that's a little bit interesting, but that maybe suggests that the long that I've been stalking all along is maybe there. Unfortunately, I still don't think that I have enough support to take a trade. Certainly not at 07.5. There does appear to be an iceberg there, though. That's interesting. Let's recenter, at least. Right there. Oh, come on. There we go. Let's see here. In Kenya, our stock exchange, I don't think it's AI automated. It's literally like how you described before, the Bloomberg terminals. So are the opportunities to make a living trading here in Kenya? That's a really good question. I mean, I would think that they still have some form of electronic market. Like, it's probably not just open outcry, right? Well, one of the issues that you can run into in a less developed market is that less developed market ends up being dominated by one big player so much that it's not worth playing. Because I do know that there were a lot of traders that went to places like Malaysia and Singapore and India to some extent, and that they were having some success there. When you look at one of the most famous quant firms right now, I don't think that it's the top quant firm or like the place that's like, if you work there, that's like the GOAT or whatever, like one of the best places that you can work. But certainly within the news lately, it's Jane Street, And Jane Street, a lot of what they were doing was trades in India. So India is kind of on that edge where it's like it's developed enough that they can make some money trading it, but it's not so developed that the opportunities aren't there anymore. So Kenya is probably before that, right? Probably before that. Which means maybe you get into it now. As long as you're not losing insane sums of money, you're well positioned for when it does get to that point, right? So I don't know how successful you'd be with it at the moment, but like maybe it's a future opportunity. It's one thing. Another thing is, what is the what are the natural resources and commodities that come out of Kenya? Are there things there? Like, especially if there's rare earth minerals and those sorts of things, and maybe it's not in Kenya, maybe it's just in the surrounding regions and they trade through Kenya, right? Getting involved in commodities might be a good place. I think that for the not the near future, I think for the next 10 and maybe even up to the next 30 to 50 years, that commodities are going to be a bit more important than they were before. We're already starting to see that in the New World Order, that commodities are an important part of this, right? Especially in rare earths. I think that the big opportunity that people are sleeping on right now is rare earths. Because, if things continue to escalate between the United States and China, then what China's going to do is they're going to cut off everybody's supply of rare earths, and we rely on that so much for some of our technologies that would be a huge, huge deal. And the United States and other countries are working to try and reduce their dependence on China for rare earths, but it's going to take a long time because we've got regulations and stuff. I have shares in a company, Rare Earth Element Resources, REMF, and they're developing a new process that allows them to process rare earth minerals without being so destructive to the environment and for cheaper. But you watch that project and how slow it goes. It takes a long time. It takes a long time for these things to build that infrastructure and stuff. So let's see here. Oh yeah, we do have single dominated players like Parastalis. Parastotals? Oh, anyways. But what if I'm trading with them? They don't do well hiding their icebergs. Well, so, I guess I haven't kind of gone into the big spill. If you watch some of my more recent videos, then you'll get more of this, and I really go into detail. But the basic gist of it is that the market is very statistically efficient, but it isn't very informationally efficient. So if there's some sort of a consistent pattern, like a chart pattern, for instance, that people find is very effective at predicting the future, people will start trading it. And as they trade it, that causes the market to move and it changes the market behavior. So that causes the market to become extremely statistically efficient. Because if it works, you're going to trade it, you make money, you size up, you're going to size up until it disappears. Right? Meanwhile, you want to say informational inefficiency, which is, does the current price reflect all available information? So, for instance, Goldman Sachs says that there's going to be 2 rate cuts this year. Well, there's a lot of disagreement on that. Goolsbee seems to think that there won't be any rate cuts this year, right? Okay, so there's some contention about that. But let's just say that we all believed Goldman Sachs that they're going to do 2 rate cuts this year. Based on that, we can calculate what the exact value that the 10-year treasury should be. And by the way, it would be considerably higher than where it is. It would probably be 5 handles So like we're at like 111 right now. And it would be like at 115 or something like that in the treasuries. Okay. That would be like the actual value of it based on those rates and everything. But you will never see it at that price. We're not at that price right now. And why is that? Well, because for it to go there, somebody has to trade it there. Somebody has to start buying it and keep buying it until they get to that point. And they have a limit on how many contracts they can buy. And they might buy it and, like they have decreasing impact on it as they go because it follows a square root law. Don't worry about that, but just something for later. So they can't push it to that actual correct price. And meanwhile, if some other fund comes in and does something, like they're a CTA and they're following momentum, or they are a risk parity fund and they have to rebalance their portfolio every month to be 60-40 equities and bonds, whatever the deal is, all of those guys, they have massive orders and they have a big impact on the market. And they're not making a trade based on how many interest rate cuts the Federal Reserve is going to make, are they? So, but they still have impact. So it's basically the market is never at that fundamentally efficient price. But that is where you can have opportunities. So the informational inefficiency is that you can, in some situations, know that, well, this big fund is going to buy because of the way that they work. And that's not reflected in the current price. So I should be able to buy it ahead of them, and then they're going to buy it and it's going to move it up for me, right? So that's kind of the place where I'm saying you can find an edge in informational inefficiency. And especially, maybe you are well positioned to do that, because if you're networking and you're, have access to a lot of information, of course, you don't want to be insider trading. There's some things that you're not allowed to trade on, but insiders have an advantage. I absolutely think, if you work for a company and they have a stock, that you should trade that company's stock. Like there's restrictions on it and everything. Like there's only select windows when you can do it and things like that. But probably better than almost anybody whether it's a good buy or not. Okay, so that was the top of the hour ding. We get to keep going until 9 o'clock today. Does look like the S&P 500 has kind of cooled off a little bit. Like they're still within striking distance of the high, but they've been there for quite some time. So it looks like that initial opening drive has subsided for now. And the treasuries are still kind of in this area. I mean, I suppose that we could have taken a trade when it went from like 09 all the way down to 06.5. But overall, I would say it's been a pretty tight and uneventful session for the treasuries. So, and not really a super positive, like, well, I guess in the 10-year, it's still kind of trending upward though. So we could maybe still take if I got a really good price, maybe I could buy it. By the way, do we have 10 o'clock Eastern Time news? We got ECB speakers. Israel-Lebanon talks. I have Goolsby speaking on here, but that's later. Oh, Parastadals are government insiders. So I think that the market exists for the people with the money and the people with the information. So be one of those two people, right? is basically the gist of it. Ooh, by the way, I totally forgot. I've been doing writing and stuff, and well, handwriting. Actually, oh, I can show you. Look, I'm trying to do the really fancy stuff now. Huh? Really fancy stuff. The light is too bright. I have to turn the light down for you to see it very well. There you go. Doing the fancy writing now. Huh? Not that it's very good yet, but I was quite impressed by like how much just getting the letter forms down was visually striking. But they do a word of the day. And I was like, I need to look up the word of the day early so that I can, use it on stream. Okay, so what is today's word of the day? Enjoin. To direct or order someone to do something. Oh, that's a good word. That's an interesting word. Oh, Laguard is speaking. We do have a lot of central bank speakers today. You got to be careful about that because, they can say market moving things and you won't be able to react to it. That's not a winning game. The only thing that's doing well, I take that back. I mean, the S&P 500 is doing amazing today, right? But the only other thing I think is Bitcoin. Bitcoin's doing really well today too. Wow. Man charged in arson attack on Sam Altman's house had AI CEO kill list, prosecutors say. So there's this article going around, and I can't remember the name of the author, but you might come around this. For some reason, some people are pushing it around as like this is a big thought leader post and like really important to read. And I'm kind of like, meh. But the gist of what they were saying, I do think is true, which was that AI is not as popular as the elites think. AI is not as popular as Sam Altman and the AI companies and Microsoft and all of these other people that have just been relentlessly chasing it. Well, yeah, because the investors want to make money and they're afraid of missing out. But all of the you know, regular people, they hate AI because everybody keeps telling them that AI is going to replace them. Hey, no dogs in here. Maybe I should have taken that long at 07.5, huh? I think we're still kind of in the range, but if we start getting above 09, I'm going to start wondering. Maybe we could breach the value area high and then make a push for 14. I don't think that we would get 14 before I have to go, though. Anyways, so is this person, they had an AI CEO kill list, you know? Like, how much of that are we going to see? Because there are definitely Luddites out there. What's more, it seems to me that the Luddites are all Democrats. And yeah, in the current political climate are going to be more likely to do something violent or protest and you know, gum things up. And that might not be good for the AI market. Watch, the AI market will just get absolutely crushed, but the software as a service companies won't recover as a result. Just my luck. That's the way it might go. I think that there are many of these SaaS companies that will do just fine, but it's probably going to take several years for the market to like get over it. What did you say here, Lewis? Changed my mind. I might not have seen all of your comments. Oh, actually it did. It hid one. By the way, Seth, what about that story by Galibaf, the member of parliament for Iran, who said basically news is being used by Trump to set up retail traders, e.g. bad press could press sell? So there was actually a story out over the weekend basically saying that the Trump administration had seen all of these stories about this and were worried about it and gave a reminder to everybody to not do that sort of stuff. So it seems to me that the narrative is Donald Trump does this stuff specifically so that insiders can buy and sell. And my position has always been, no, like insiders always buy and sell, and they're just taking advantage of it, and it's not any kind of coordination. And that story coming out of the White House, I think, kind of reinforces that. But it is always going to be the case that there are people that are insiders making money off of the markets. Again, the market exists for the people with the money and the people with the information. If it was basically made illegal for you to ever trade when you have an informational advantage over other people, then like there would be no point to markets. So there's always going to be some gray area where that's happening. Always. It is the nature of the game. Okay, Lewis said, it seems to me the left are mental. Change my mind. The left is attracting people with mental issues right now, yes. So there's a couple things going on here, right? Because one thing is that like mental health care in the United States has been broken ever since Ronald Reagan closed the mental institutions back in the 80s. Those people that are most affected by that probably aren't the people that you're seeing post about it online, but there is one thing there, which is that, you know, mental health care is not the best in the United States, okay? Then we've got all of this, like, we're isolating people. They're not spending as much time with their family or with other, you know, people in their area. We have destroyed local communities. People are more isolated than ever. And so that is leading to a lot of problems. And then there's all of the crazy stuff that happens from participating online too much. And so I think that we are causing more mental illness. In other words, like, mental illness can be caused by your environment and the decisions that you make. So there is more of it. And then, at least in the current environment, the Democrat Party has kind of been positioning itself to bring those people into its party. Like, they are really trying to attract people that are, and I wouldn't even say just mentally challenged, like mental health issues rather, but people that are neurotic. Like, the left is really playing into the neuroticism right now. And now we are at the value area high at 11. And this buy is still coming through. So, I was kind of stalking it. We saw it earlier. There was a time between 07 and 09. I could have taken it anywhere in there, but I felt that I didn't have a strong enough evidence. It wasn't truly confident enough for it. I think I was being too cautious there. There's certainly times where I would have taken trades like that and I would have regretted it. Now I'm feeling like chasing it, but that to me is like never works out. So let's just cool off and let it do its thing for a second. And that means I don't take a trade today, but we still want to understand this flow because this one was one we kind of predicted a little bit, and like the market is going through a key period, so we want to see how the flows are going through and all that. Anyways, and then, maybe Seth is just talking out his butt and hates Democrats or something like that, but like there is lots of polling and research on this subject, and what do we find? We find that there are more Democrats seeking mental health care, and that Democrats have higher neuroticism right now, and that there are more women in the Democrat Party also, and women tend to be more neurotic. So that's just where it is. Probably won't stay that way forever, but that's what it is today. Some guy proved it. They did a story on Breaking Point also that works in crypto. Think about it. Why is crypto up when all the indicators should be that they are down? Well, but here's the thing with crypto is that there is not any true end market for cryptocurrency. There was maybe a point where it looked like maybe there would be, and then they killed it. So basically the market for Bitcoin is almost completely speculation. There's not anybody that they have to buy Bitcoin in order to conduct their business, right? There are businesses that have to buy treasuries on a regular basis in order to do business, right? Like, treasuries are an essential part of their business. In Bitcoin, there's not really like that. There are people that sell. There are businesses that sell Bitcoins. Like the miners, for instance. There's not anybody that has to buy it. So that means that the Bitcoin market is entirely about, will some other speculator buy it? And that means if you have the inside track on these whales, you can front run it for sure. Yeah. You're a woman? Well, you know, it's... I should note, I guess, that because when I say women are more neurotic, that is on average, right? And you're really talking about, like, we're not talking about the average woman. We're kind of talking more details, right? So if you look at a distribution of neuroticism, like how many people are this neurotic, not very neurotic and very neurotic, you're going to see that men and women are very close, except for on the tail where there's more women that are highly neurotic than there are men. It's just funny to be called neurotic. Yeah. Well, it's such a, I'm trying to use it as a scientific term, right? It just seems like a bizarre thing in general, doesn't it? That the politics are being driven by one political party is significantly more neurotic than the other. That just doesn't seem like it. That certainly must be propaganda from one party or the other. Like, there's no way that can actually be the case, right? But that is the stats right now. And is that Democrats are more neurotic. And we think, well, I mean, there's different theories about why, right? But, excuse me, got a little heartburn there. There's different theories about why, and they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, so more than one can be true at a time, right? But one of the biggest factors is that women are attracted to the Democrat Party right now. And, yeah. I understand as an African woman, we get this white women, or wait, what is that? I don't think I've ever heard of that before. White women neurosis is a complex, controversial term, bridging psychological, historical, and sociological perspectives. It often refers to internalized anxiety, high rates of reported depression, or historical hysteria. Critiques also address white tears as a mechanism to avoid accountability or a profound neurosis linked to maintaining social hierarchies. Huh. That's curious. So, like, historical context hysteria. Yeah, there you go. They did test that opening range quite a few times here now, by the way. Yeah. Well, you know, neurotic describes someone who tends to feel more anxious, stressed, or emotionally reactive than average. Yes. Well, I think that I would say it means that they are more prone to negative emotions. It means that they are more prone to negative emotions. Yeah. And women are more prone to negative emotions. It's kind of a different thing because one of the other arguments that we have that people often have is, are men or women more emotional? And my understanding of the science is that men and women are equally emotional. That the difference is in the type of emotions. Men are more prone to anger, is their negative emotion, for instance. Women don't get as much anger. So, but you know, the other So when it comes to gendered differences, though, the one that is the most interesting is how men and women approach risk. Men and women have a pretty well documented different approaches to risk. And so we have found that because of that, that men and women, that you tend to be more successful when you have men and women. Because the women kind of force you to think everything through and make sure that you've really got all your boxes checked and that you're really considering all of the risk factors. And then that improves your performance. That's also why there is a really, like there's a push to have more women entrepreneurs, right? That's not just this, well, we want to have as many women in everything. That's definitely part of it, right? So like, well, to really be truly rich, you got to be an entrepreneur. That's where the big wealth comes from. And we want there to be more equity between men and women in income. And so to do that, you're going to have more female entrepreneurs. So I think that that's kind of the track that a lot of people are going through. But it is also the case that we just need female entrepreneurs because they approach it differently, right? And that's the difference. And it really, really comes into play in trading. So I would say that on average, like your average female trader is better than your average male trader. The problem that your average female trader has is that they don't take enough risk. When they've really got the opportunity, they've got a home run, they don't really drive it the way that the guys do. So ultimately, they tend not to make as much money as the men. But the men will blow out, and the women are much less likely to. They fret a lot about everything. They can fret themselves to histrionics. It happens when you have enough, but lack bigger purpose in 2026. And I'm not sure what a woman even is. Man, I find this subject difficult to talk about. One, because, there's lots of people out there ready to counsel you if you say the wrong thing. But also because there are some things that we can show, and things that are in our wheelhouse, like relating to complexity and news and how culture moves and develops and stuff like that, that is directly related to our wheelhouse, that is maybe unpopular to say. But I'll say it because I think it's important. The negative aspects of the internet and the international culture that has been created in the last 20 years, the negative effects of that affect women much more than they do men. Especially on social media. Social media affects women way more than it affects men. There's an epidemic of men that feel like that their wife is ignoring them because all she does is scroll Facebook. It's because, women are kind of pay more attention to social dynamics. And you get on Facebook and it's just this constant stream of drama. Right? So it's really there. And the thing is, I think immediately people go into that, well, you're saying that women are worse than men. Well, no, I'm just saying they're more affected by a particular issue, right? Men have a tendency towards violence. Like, straight up, it's just men are more likely to be violent, and that is due to testosterone, right? And so, like, when we're talking about politics, for instance, men are going to be more likely to be the hawk, to say, yeah, we need to go in and do something. This country has done this thing that's bad. We're going to go in like war, right? And we've lived with that for thousands of years. So we know what men's tendencies are. And when we made the Constitution of the United States, for instance, part of the reason that we structured things the way that they did was not just from what we had learned from history and how democracy goes, but how men will behave in certain situations, that you gain power and then you try and expand your power as much as you can. That there is a tendency for men to go to war when it really shouldn't be, and so they try to make it difficult to go to war, right? So we understand those things about men, and we have controls in our society and social rules and history and everything to help us deal with that. But we don't have that for women in politics. We don't have that for women in social media. And we're finding out. And unfortunately, I think some of us that are like the most exposed to the internet, the perpetually online like myself, are kind of starting to realize this. But it seems like that the general public does not. They know that something's wrong. They blame the social media companies, but they're not doing anything about it. You know, like it's still really hard to convince mom to like not give the kids so much access to iPads, for instance, even though there's very, very well documented negative effects from giving them iPads too early. Spending too much time on the iPad. Yeah. So it might take a few generations for people to figure it out. And who gets hurt the most from it? It's women. It's women who are experiencing the negative emotions when it's really just been induced on them from being on Facebook too much. Right? And that does play into why, you know, Democrats are more appealing to women. Although I think the primary thing is access to birth control and abortions is probably the bigger reason why women support the Democrat Party. But you get what I'm saying. Men and women are very different. I say this as an African woman. There's strengths and weaknesses that complement each other. Just watching an ant documentary really is an ethos for life. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Oh, it's like the couples who go out for dinner and they spend their time looking at the phone. Yeah. Oh, I missed a couple of your comments. This is when women are long-term thinkers as opposed to short-term bursts of energy. I think how women do well in endurance racing like ultramarathons. We suffer better longer. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, I mean, it's just here in the United States, some of the stuff is just going kind of in weird directions. Because I think I agree with you. I think that men and women are good at different things and they're complementary. You need both of them. And like entrepreneurship is one of those places where we need more women entrepreneurs. Society would benefit from having more women entrepreneurs. Really what we need to do, like if there's a change that I think needs to be made in Western society, I think that we need to make employment more flexible. We just, not just like, because the model that we have now is you work 9 to 5 and you have to be on site. And well, that doesn't really work for what a lot of women want to do with their lives, right? A woman needs to be able to work when the kids are in school and then be home when the kids are not in school, because the kids don't get out at 5 o'clock. They get out at 3 o'clock, right? They go to school before 9. So you can work 9 to 3. Okay. That'd be a schedule that work for a woman. And they also need to be able to take a year or two off to, you know, raise kids, or maybe they take a whole decade off. You should still be able to get back into the workforce after that. And the way that things are set up right now, you can't. So taking time off to have children is like a huge risk for mothers, right? And we need to lessen that risk is what we need to do. Instead, what we're doing is like then people just don't get married and have kids. That's a big problem too. So I'm frustrated by it. I'm very frustrated by it because there's definitely some of these dynamics going on, and it feels to me like that society is just not tackling them at all, because you bring this stuff up and then they're like, well, that sounds misogynistic because you're saying that women are not as good at a certain thing, or that they're more prone to this problem or something. That's misogynistic. No, it's just an acknowledgement of the statistics, and we need to account for it. Right? In Kenya, women are the most small-scale traders. We are also having an epidemic with our men. There is a high youth unemployment here, and unfortunately changing social dynamics. Well, that's happening everywhere, though. Man, I can only imagine. Yeah, I mean, like I notice amongst the youth, they're having many more problems, like motivating them to do excellent work is much harder and harder. Like, it was hard when I was kid. Like, I was always wanted to do that, and I noticed that most of my peers did not. And it's only gotten worse with my children. And it's gotten worse in the past 2 years because of AI. Because now they're like, well, nothing matters because AI is just going to take over everything anyway. So why should I try? I'm not going to get rewarded for it. Right? It's happening everywhere. And then you have the high unemployment rate among the youth, and that's a big problem. Right now in the United States, young college graduates are not getting hired as quickly as they were in the past. Like, if that's something that, if that continues, is going to lead to serious societal problems, and I'm talking like revolutions and blood in the streets kind of problems, right? But I also think that there are problems with men in general. Like, I really think that us men kind of need a bit of guidance. You know, like, most cultures have some sort of coming of age sort of a thing. Like, you have some ceremony that you go through, and then you're a man, right? And you're going to be mentored by the other men. And in the past, there was things where, like, you would pick a trade, and then you would be taught that trade by another man, right? And now we don't have that. They're just kind of on their own, and it results in degeneracy is what it happens. They don't have that community. They form gangs. They get involved in crime. And the thing that I think is weird about this one is that you see these dynamics in other mammals. That, like, for instance, there was an elephant sanctuary somewhere, and they brought in some males, and all the males did was just, like, trash the place and create chaos and terrorize the other elephants. And it wasn't until they brought in an older male, came in and kind of set the other males straight and taught them how to behave. So, and I mean, I think one of the things is that our hormones can have really strong impacts on our behavior. And so your mind kind of has to learn how to deal with that. And how do you do that? It's best learning from people, other people that deal with that, right? So there are things that men are only going to learn from other men, and women are only going to learn from other women. And maybe a woman can learn about those things about a man, but it's not going to come naturally to them. I don't think that most women understand what it is to like experience true rage. Most men do. Do you think it's because we're having a problem with capitalism? Well, so I don't think that it is just about making a profit, but there is a problem in our system, right? It's not capitalism per se. So I hate when we blame it on capitalism, because all capitalism means is that you can have private ownership of the means of production, right? So in communism, you go and you have a shoe factory, and the shoe factory is really successful or whatever. You can't own the shoe factory. You can't start a shoe factory, right? That has to be done publicly. That has to be like the shoe builders guild gets together and they determine that there's enough workers that they need to make another factory, right? And that's how things work under communism. You can't own things, right? And then because you can't own things, you can't have trade. You can't have a market. And that's really important, because it is through the people making transactions in the market that we're able to discover price. And there's no other way to do it, really. Like without the market, the data to understand what a price actually should be, like, just literally doesn't exist, right? So that to me is capitalism, and that to me is a prerequisite for a successful, abundant society. If you don't have that, if you don't have markets, then you're never able to resolve the supply bottlenecks, and that just is always holding the economy back overall, and you never have real growth. Okay, so you have to have capitalism. But there are a lot of other things going on in our society that are related to the business world that aren't necessarily capitalism, but it is adjacent, right? And so there could be a form of capitalism that doesn't have those problems. But we definitely do have those problems, right? There are some people that are just so profit driven that they are making decisions that negatively affect everybody else. In the past, we would say, oh, I shouldn't do that because that's bad for all of the people under me. But now they just do it. They feel like in the global system that what they do, you know, it's they can distance themselves from it. It's not their fault. So we have people making bad decisions because of that. Yeah. And that's why we talk about what we do here, because the market is statistically efficient, but it's not informationally efficient. So when you come in and you say, I'm going to lay off half of my workforce because that's what the market likes and the stock price is going to go up, those people, they justify it by saying, well, the stock price goes up, that must mean that it's good. But because we know that the market is not informationally efficient, the stock market's reaction to something is not the final say on whether something was good or bad. We have to look at those decisions and study them and look at the data and understand what is a good policy and bad policy, regardless of what the market thinks about those things. And I'll tell you what, in some situations, there's going to be decisions that are good for the individuals, but are bad for the market. That is going to happen. And we shouldn't always pick the market side. We need the market to function, but we shouldn't always pick the market side. And you know what? That's okay, because I think AI really is going to increase efficiency. It's a real thing. I find it useful. It's only going to get better. It doesn't replace people. You still need people to be decision makers, so it changes the nature of work, but it's not going to completely get rid of work. And so we have that excess efficiency for us to come in and say, okay, but we'll do this. Yeah, the market won't be quite as effective, but we already have so much abundance. It's okay. That's where I think things are headed. There is a certain nihilism even here in Kenya, like nothing matters, so why even try for women? It's easier because we never had anything to begin with, so scraps are okay. Men don't see it that way. Nihilism, let me tell you something. It's communism, and number 2 on my list would be nihilism. These are the ideologies of losers. Like nihilism in particular, like I get it. That especially if you don't believe in a god, but sometimes even if you do believe in a god, there's going to be this kind of like little voice in the back of your head that's like, nothing matters. It's true. Nothing matters, and so why does what I do matter? Well, sure, Seth, you understand a lot about complex systems, and so you understand some of the things that need to happen, like being able to make better decisions in spite of what the market thinks, that are necessary for our society to reach like the next stage of prosperity, right? But nobody's going to listen to you. And even if you were successful, you might never experience it. So like, why does it even matter? But only for other people. It's the nihilism. And if there is no God, then like it's just going to be, you're going to disappear and you're not even going to be conscious anymore. I think that anybody that's reasonably intelligent is going to feel that. I just ignore it because I know that nihilism does not lead to success. I want to be successful. So I just ignore it. I care always, even when it shouldn't matter. I want to do the best job, even when it doesn't matter. Nobody's looking, nobody cares. They don't want you to spend the time on it. I'm still going to do the excellent because I care, because that's what leads to success. That's what young men need to be taught, that they're not being taught, I think. And I'll tell you another thing. Once they turn about 16, your kids definitely go into this mode that's like, my parents don't know anything, right? So you're always going to see that amongst the youth. The question is when they come out on the other side, when they're like 26, right? They think back on what you said and they go, yes, this is what brings success. And they integrate that more fully into their lives. Yeah. I was thinking like I got to wrap it up because we got to go, but we still have 20 minutes. We still have 20 minutes left. Also, while we did miss that move up, I made the right decision not getting in after this. I'm thinking back. Remember when I was saying that like there was some signs of absorption at like the 06 and the 06 half area? So that was kind of curious to me. Like when I look back on the chart and I look at that move up and it's like, what? Oh, hold on a second. We thought I was supposed to go into work today, but it's Thursday is the day that I need to go in. So we won't have the longer session on Thursday. This will be the only longer session this week. Yeah, but anyways, lately I've been hammering on communism more than nihilism, though. Communism is the ideology of losers. And what is communism to me? Specifically the idea that the world sucks, and the reason that the world sucks is because of the people in power are using their power to oppress us at our expense. And so because they're so successful, they're taking all of the money away from us, and in order for things to get better, we have to take it away from them. That's the ideology of a loser. Doesn't lead to success. And every time that the communists take power, they don't have success. They still have problems. So what's the problem with communism? The problem with communism is, one, they think that your problem is somebody else, and then two, that the solution is to tear that person down. So I say, maybe there are people that are rich, and maybe some of the decisions that they are making are holding other people back. The way that you deal with that isn't by violently overthrowing them, killing them, then trying to split their assets amongst everybody. No, the way that you deal with that is you become friends with them. You understand why they do the things that they do. You work together with them, and you get them to, they will go, oh, I like this guy. I think here's an opportunity for them. And there's this opportunity for them. They'll bring you opportunities, and they'll bring up opportunities to everybody. And over time, everybody will get better, right? And maybe at some point they will realize, oh, yes, I actually shouldn't be doing this thing. It's holding other people back. They will give it up voluntarily. Violent overthrow doesn't fix the problem. It just creates another cycle. Like, even if you're successful with it, you do overthrow them, then that becomes the new elites, and then they oppress everybody else. And that's what's happened in every communist country. The thing that I think is frightening to me is this UBI ideology that I see amongst people. Because it's basically people saying, like, yes, you're right. We are losers. We're going to lose the AI wars. And so the only solution is for the winners to throw us a bone every once in a while. And we should, like, etch that in stone in our laws or something. It's just insane to think about. You're just it's a open acknowledgement that we think we're the losers, and so we should start preparing for it now. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right in that maybe AI takes over, and the few people that are at the AI companies and control the AIs have all of the money, and everybody else has practically nothing. And if you don't become a millionaire in the next 5 years, then you will be stuck in the permanent underclass. I think that there are multiple scenarios, multiple ways that AI could go, and multiple ways that you can get to those places. And one of those places may well be a permanent underclass. But let me tell you something. Believing that that is true and acting on that is true will never lead to success. It will cause you to do things that maybe make that reality more likely, right? Because then what do people do? Oh, I hate AI. I don't want to learn AI. I'm going to try and undermine it in any way that I can. I don't want to be excellent because it's not going to matter anyways. I'm not going to make money from it, right? And you're never going to do the things that would be prerequisites for you to be successful anyways. Yeah, I think there are some situations where you might know where something is going, and you should still just pretend in your head that that's not what's going to happen and go the other way. Because as soon as you accept that thing, it's going to result in behavior that's not good for you. And you'll be surprised how often you go into that, or you think a certain thing is certain, but you do what you think is the most excellent thing regardless of it. How often it will work out for you anyways. You'll be totally right, but it will still work out for you. Let's see here. As a woman, a man will never understand the emotional 3 days when we are on our period and how much rage and anguish we go through in a way, a spiritual dropping of the veil. You see everything as it is. Well, okay, this is a weird thing. You know, I don't know a whole lot about that. Obviously, because I'm a guy. I can see it in my wife though, like the period, like the way that she, not that, like what should call it, the cycle, the ups and downs of the cycle, and especially that period. You know that the worst period of the cycle is not actually when women are menstruating, but in the period just before they're menstruating. Like that is like if you're trading, be careful about the risk that you take on when you're in they call it the luteal period? I forget what they call it. Like that week before you actually menstruate. You can make bad decisions in that period. Now I don't think that men have that kind of a cycle, but I have training cycles where I'm lifting heavier and lifting lighter. And when you're lifting heavier, that's really taxing on your nervous system because you're training the nervous system to fire so it's building up enough chemicals and everything so it can get all of the muscles to fire right. And so when you're in that period where, the nervous system is kind of low, you make bad decisions. I've done it. So my worst trades have been during those periods. We literally go some metamorphosis. I swear, it's like we're literally tripling. We're on the borderline of insanity. Well, the thing that I find interesting about what you're saying that I've never heard before is this idea like it's the veil gets pulled and you're seeing reality. Because everything I've ever heard is like you're just not yourself during that period, and that the way that you feel during that period is not the reality. But you're kind of saying the reason it's so awful is because you start seeing reality for what it really is, and you don't have the rose-colored glasses on anymore. That's interesting. Do I think that this is gonna go after we leave? I don't think so. I do think though that I should have, like if I was, let's not say should have. I think it's okay to pass on it. I'm never going to like, it's never a bad thing to miss a trade, I think, because you really want to take the risks when you're really confident that you have an edge. In that situation, I wasn't. There were maybe times where I would have been more confident. I would have taken that though. So I think that I probably should have taken that trade. Like this is a market where it's like things are kind of hunky-dory, so like I can take a risk like that, and that risk would have worked. But we would have only have gotten this range. I think part of it is I'm also looking for things to like touch these levels based on volatility. The way that it's going right now makes me think that we're just going to underperform volatility today. So we are below 5% again, by the way, too. So I guess that's kind of like my synopsis for the day. It should come back here really quick and just take a look at the charts and kind of see, do I see any of these differently? The end, not really. We've come back up, but it's not nearly to the high of the session. The S&P 500 extended though, and well into this range from before February. So actually we need to come onto a daily chart and look at that and then go, okay, we're like within striking distance of highs again. Wow. Well, I tell you what, if that was the worst of it and we're in the recovery, then like game on. That's if that's all we get for a pullback, that's an easy pullback. And look, volatility didn't even actually get that crazy either. But that kind of makes me nervous. It kind of makes me think that there's more chaos to come. Oil. So oil's not quite breaching the lows either. Well, I would like to see oil below 90, but it's headed in the right direction, and we've got some progress here this session. Gold and silver. Well, okay, so silver's taking off a little bit too. That's interesting. And if silver pops off again this year, it's going to be really crazy. It'll be really crazy if silver pops off again this year. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, that's unlikely to happen and that would make it crazy. No, I mean like that this thing is structured in a way that if it pops off again, so many people will get involved and it will get that it's just going to be absolute mania. It will be really something to behold. Like we had a little taste of silver mania, but I think there could be some real silver mania. I hope that it happens again, but I don't know. It's probably unlikely to happen again. Copper extended a little bit too. And the Japanese yen, it looks like they're mostly in the hour that we've been looking at it, at least. Just kind of where they were. And then Bitcoin took another little jump. So nothing that changes the picture too much, but just kind of gives us an idea of like what's moving today, right? Okay, let's see here. China did make a better system than rabid capitalism. Their version of communism basically means reining in ultra wealthy trillionaires who did not add any advantage to the collective. Well, I'm not sure what you've seen regarding China, but it's far from utopia, says Lewis. Yeah, so China's really kind of a weird thing. I see really weird stuff about China because basically what happened in China is they had communism and they said we need to open up and have markets. And that's when China started to become successful, was because they allowed people to have private ownership of capital, private ownership of business, and they allowed people to have free trade. And it's just that ultimately you're all doing it in service of the government. So if the government asks you to come in and do something, then you're supposed to do it. I mean, look, here in the United States, if the government asks you to do something, you're probably going to do it, right? But it's not like you can fight against it in some instances. So I don't know. But there are definitely some problems in China because there are still vast areas of China that are impoverished. They have a really huge problem with youth unemployment. They have not had as many people as they thought that they did. So they're certainly not perfect by any means. And I don't know if we really say that they rein in ultra wealthy trillionaires. I mean, the thing is, again, the problem with wealth is that trying to redistribute the wealth tends to destroy the thing that created the wealth in the first place, right? So, like we say, Jeff Bezos, is he adding anything to anybody? Well, the money that he has sitting in Amazon does. If that money wasn't in there anymore, Amazon wouldn't be able to fund their operations, right? It would hurt their company. So does that mean that we should give him as much leeway as we do? I think no. Like this whole thing that the wealthy can just borrow against their assets and never have to sell the assets or pay taxes on anything, that doesn't sit well with me. The proposals that I've heard from people to deal with that, I don't think make sense. I think that what should happen is that all loans should be for purpose loans, or rather all loans based on assets. So like if you go to the bank and you take out a loan to start a business, right? That's a for purpose loan. So the money that they give you has to go to the business. And if you don't, then you're committing fraud, right? But if you take out a loan against your stocks, then that is not for purpose. So you can do anything that you want with that money, right? And I say, no. If we give you a loan, it should always be for purpose. So the rich would not be able to take these loans out against their assets unless it's going into a business or something like that. Right? And if they want to buy a yacht, they can, but they have to sell their assets and pay the tax in order to do that. That's how I think it should work. Right? There you go. Okay. Reality is as it is. It humbles you in a way is astonishingly beautiful. If China becomes hostile to wealthy people, they will simply move. They kind of have done a lot of things to kind of limit their ability to move the wealth out. But the wealthy definitely have prepared and are like ready to move if something like that happened, for sure. But here's the problem that I see with China, is that China still believes in communism. So they think eventually at some point they're going to become successful enough, right? Like if they defeated the United States in economic war, right? So I really think that's the way that they think of it, is that like they have to become the top dog. And when the sole global superpower is China, then they will go back to communism and destroy everything that they built. They will go back to communism. They will try to impose communism on the world and destroy everything. China became successful because they gave up communism. They still believe in it. So the U.S. is saying no ships have made it past the blockade in the past 24 hours. I don't know. So if you're really into this sort of thing, what you need to do is you need to read about complexity economics. So here's the book that you want to get. It's by Doyne Farmer. Making Sense of Chaos. A Better Economics for a Better World. I have it in the bookcase behind me. I'm not going to go and unlock the bookcase and get it out. But basically what they're showing is that the economy is a dynamic, evolving thing that's constantly changing. And so if we really want to have better economics and make better decisions, we have to use science that can deal with dynamic evolving systems. And the primary way that you do that is through what we call agent-based models. So you go and you create a computer simulation and you have like these agents in there, which are basically like little mini AIs that work based on certain rules. And then you can do things like change the rules that these function on, or change the rules of the system in which these agents exist within, and then see how they behave. And that can allow you to test out certain policy ideas. And then we can kind of go in and say, okay, if we did this thing, like what's the actual effect, and is it positive or negative? And that's what we need to be able to see if these things are good or bad, right? So we know pretty much from experience that you have to have free markets to have success, right? But now there's all these other little questions in there. There's tons of regulations and things that can change within that framework. So capitalism is necessary. That doesn't mean that the version of capitalism that we have today is optimal, right? That's when Xiaoping said it doesn't matter the color of the cat so long as it catches the rat. He understands he has to open up the economy, but on their own terms. Lots. It's not just that. I think that she said, oh, we want to do what the West did with us. The West became more successful as they helped us develop. And so we will become more successful as we help Africa develop. But it gets more complicated than that, because there's loans, and some of the loans that China makes are really kind of more of a ball and chain. And then there are competing interests from the United States and stuff. I don't know. Although it really seems to me that the United States is moving towards, okay, North and South America will be our sphere of influence, and we have everything that we need over here, and we just won't care what happens on the other side of the world. That's kind of where they're going right now. Which I'm not convinced it'll work out that way, but all right. Well, it is time for me to go. We are still at 11 to 11.5. Yeah, I should have taken a trade, but that's okay. I would have felt really good if I had caught that, wouldn't I have? I should have taken it. I think that when I would have taken it, I would have gotten a little bit of heat though. So, but I think that's a good sign. Let's just put that down as like, okay, the market is starting to cooperate a little bit better. So maybe we have more opportunities later this week. Yeah. But I'm going to get going. I will see you guys tomorrow. Got a couple of new people. So just so you know, we do this every day starting at 8:30 Eastern time. Okay. And then on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we only go until 10 o'clock Eastern time. And on Tuesday and Thursday, except for not this Thursday, we go till 11 Eastern time. So see you guys then. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.